right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show, your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. This is season 3, episode 1 of Draft on Tap. Yes, that's right. The season for Commanders is over. We are switching now firmly into draft mode. Today's guest, one of my favorite young creators in the Commanders space, Mason Kinahan is my guest today. He was in the Senior Bowl all last week, and I'm excited to be able to chop it up with him. Mason, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Doug. I'm. It's been a great day today in Glassboro, New Jersey, and thanks for having me on too. I'm excited to talk some ball.
Absolutely. So this is year 2 for you in Mobile, Alabama. I'm curious, in your second year down in Mobile, what were you able to take away from the first year that made this year a little easier?
Yeah, I think. I mean, just a lot of the logistics, like getting down there. Is it worth staying for the game, and like just when to get out? What's the best time to fly? And all of that helped a ton, and also the process of getting your badge and all the media stuff that goes along with the media day, the interviews, all of that. My first year, it was great going and getting to know the process and what it's like in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. And then this year, I think now that I already knew the process going in, it was a lot easier to get in touch with some players and get to talk with some guys in the industry. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was totally set to go this year and got sick the week of. I had my badge ready and I
Uh,
didn't make it. I've been trying to get down there for a long time. So you're in Jersey, you flew into Florida and then traveled out to Mobile. How do most people do that?
yeah, so I'm in New Jersey, so I went from Philly to actually Dulles to Mobile. So it's funny because usually I would just fly out from Dulles, but last year they didn't have a direct flight, so I had to like have a layover in Houston. But now this year I'm in college, so I fly out of Philadelphia, and they actually have a direct from Dulles to Mobile this year. So it just happened so that I flew through there. So it was a lot of fun though, and I got to do it with a good friend that also is here at the radio station. So it was a lot of fun.
So what day do you get down to Mobile?
Yeah, so we flew out 3 a.m. on Monday from here. It was bright and early in the morning. We left Glassboro. We flew out. I think our first flight was at like 6 a.m. From Philadelphia. We got the Dulles at about 7, and then our flight got delayed a little bit. So we actually ended up getting into Mobile around about 11 a.m. local time, which from there we got some food, and then in the afternoon there was a session that we had to go and pick up our passes. So we actually got down there pretty early. But I got down on Monday. I flew out Friday morning. I didn't have the chance to stay for the game. I had to get back, get some schoolwork done. So we flew out Friday morning and got back here around like 2. So it was a great trip though, all in all.
Now, the interesting thing about a lot of these Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, and even the Super Bowl, a lot of people will go down for media availability, do the networking, do the interviewing with the players, but don't necessarily stay for the game. I think probably a lot of people would be surprised, Mason, at how many people go down there
Oh, yeah.
and don't actually go to the game, right?
Yes, there's, I mean, a lot of people that fly out on Friday morning from some of the biggest names. Like a lot of the PFF guys were flying out the same time I was flying out Friday morning. I saw Rick Spielman, who was at the airport as well. So a lot of the content guys with ESPN and pretty much everyone that's not involved with NFL Network who's actually broadcasting the game on that Saturday flew out on Friday morning, which the game is cool, but it's a lot easier to view the game on a broadcast. Plus, you get to save some of the money from the hotels, a couple extra nights, and all that. So, and then even for stuff like the Super Bowl, it's really hard to actually get a media pass for the Super Bowl game itself. It's a lot easier to go on Radio Row for the entire week and film content there. So that's something I'm looking forward to maybe do one day. But for now, I've enjoyed what the Senior Bowl has been able to bring.
Okay, you get into Mobile, you pick up your credential badge, and what is the plan for the first day?
Yeah, so on Monday, there's nothing planned beyond an introductory press conference from Jim Nagy, and then Nagy selects 2 players, one from each team or one from each roster that also is represented at the press conference. So in this case, it was Jalen Milroe, quarterback from Alabama, and Dylan Gabriel, quarterback from Oregon. So we get to ask Nagy a few questions along with the other couple prospects that are there. Overall, the press conference is about 30 minutes for all three of them. It's not that long. And it's just a couple questions just to get to know. Nagy does like his opening statement and kind of opens up the week with stuff he wants to say. And from there, that's pretty much it for Monday. And we get into the practices Tuesday through Thursday. I don't know if you jumping a little bit ahead here, but Wednesday is probably the big day for what the schedule is looking like. We have the two practices. Practices usually start 9:30 a.m. is one of the practices. It goes for about 2 hours. Then you get about a half-hour break, and then the next practice starts and it goes for about 2 hours from about 12 to 2:30, somewhere around there. And then on Wednesday, we get the opportunity to have an open media session with both teams. So in the afternoon, about 3, 4, 5 p.m., we get to have 45 minutes where the players kind of just walk around this conference room. You can say hi to them. You can talk with them, interview them, whatever you want to do. So it's a great opportunity. That's where I get most of my interviews. I haven't even posted like a majority of them yet. I still got to edit a few. So I'm looking forward to posting those though. And it's definitely my favorite part of the week is that media session.
So that media session ends up becoming a first come, first serve. You're standing in a line for a long time. There's a sign up sheet. How does that work?
Yeah, so anyone who has a media credential can go to that media session. It's in one of the conference rooms within the convention center of the Mobile Convention Center. It's kind of first come, first serve. I mean, the players are just walking around. Sometimes, you just hop in a little bit of a line. Usually for the bigger names, it's probably more of a traditional media scrum, like media huddle, where one person is asking the prospect a question at a time. But for most of the guys, especially the ones that are not the quarterbacks, it's a lot easier to talk with. And maybe you wait for one person to get done, but like you can talk with them and ask them however many questions you want. Of course, you want to be like respectful of other people's time, give other people a chance. But it's kind of first come, first serve. But there's so many prospects there as well that it's not too busy. Like you're not going to be waiting in a line for 10, 15 minutes to interview one prospect. Sometimes you got to wait for one person, two people. But yeah. So
Now, are you doing homework on prospects and then searching those prospects down? Are you just seeing prospects and saying, "Oh, I'd really like to go talk with him"? How does that kind of work just from your mindset on how you prepare for it?
yeah, that's a good question. So going into the week of Senior Bowl, I watched some prospects. Especially, I want to focus on the ones that are attending and have accepted invites to the Senior Bowl. So I don't really get to the prospects that don't go to the Senior Bowl until afterwards because I want to dive deep into the few of the ones that I've kind of enjoyed watching throughout the college football season. And so I have a couple of names and some questions that I want to ask them heading in. But also at the same time, you want to see who's playing well throughout the week. You kind of are just down there. And for me, especially, I was kind of like, if there's someone open, I'm going to go talk to them. So, I mean, I was lucky enough on the very first day, I got a chance to talk with Mike Green, who ended up having a very good week for his draft stock. But it's kind of, you got to be a little bit smart with it. Some of the prospects kind of like, hang out by the sides, maybe in the corners, because they don't want like a bunch of media kind of asking them all questions at once. So you've got to be like a little bit smart of where if I was a prospect here, where would I want? Maybe if I wasn't like huge into the media, but I don't mind talking to a guy or two. So, but it's great because even before I hit the record button, I want to have a conversation with them, get to know them just a little bit, introduce myself as well. So it's kind of just go with the flow type of thing, especially later on in the week after I get the first couple of guys that I'm looking forward to seeing. But it's a lot of fun, I enjoy it a lot.
You are asking X's and O's questions. You're asking them what their favorite pet's name is, like a mixture of both. What are you trying to achieve? Because what do you get? I'm assuming you get just a brief 3, 4, 5 minutes of time with these guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I get about like, I like to keep my interviews about maybe a minute, couple minutes, sometimes 3 if there's a prospect I really like. It's a mix. Maybe I ask them some X's and O's, especially in the first couple of days. I like to ask them, how's it feeling? What are the vibes like here? Just getting into Mobile because they get there just one day before the rest of the media gets there. So the prospects get there on Sunday. They do their measurements on Sunday night and into Monday as well. So they're also adjusting to a new environment, and so I kind of want to get their thoughts on what they're looking to achieve throughout the week, and then especially towards the end of the week with the after the final practice, I like to ask prospects, is there something that you're looking forward to showcasing scouts within the game that you haven't been able to show so far this week, and what is something that they're like most proud of this week. So I try and keep it mainly to the week itself, but going into like the preparation I do before the Senior Bowl, I would I have some excellence in those questions that I want to ask specific prospects based on the tape that I see. So
Now, the Commanders obviously will have sent a fairly large contingency down there. Do you get opportunities to talk with any of those folk?
yeah, so how they like to split up the media at the practices is the media gets to sit on one side of the stadium, and they just changed this within the last decade, I believe, because I was talking to some people about this. But GMs and scouts sit on the other side of the stadium when watching practices, so they kind of restrict the access during the practices that you can talk with the GMs or the scouts. But after practices, especially like at night dinners and all of that at the bars. You know, I still got a couple more years, but eventually I'll be able to. All the scouts are at like in downtown Mobile, and all the GMs are in downtown Mobile, having a great time. So it's definitely a big way to network just outside of the practices, because the practices itself, media is kind of in a section, and then the GMs are all in a section themselves. But outside the practices is when you'd probably have the best opportunity to talk with scouts or GMs, really whoever in the NFL world. Like I got to talk to some great people like Trevor Sikkema at PFF. A lot of the media people I was able to talk to during the week, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, that's pretty much.
I was just say that was my follow-up question. Literally everybody in the NFL world
Oh
is
yes.
down in Mobile. Did you have any starstruck moments while you were down there?
Definitely, especially the first time. The first time, because the Senior Bowl when I went last year, that was the biggest media event I've gone to, and I was credentialed for. So being able to see some of these guys in the media industry that I look up to, a guy like Trevor Sikkema, a guy like I mean, it's kind of a Connor Rogers, or even I mean, I'm just listing PFF guys, I guess, but like Max Chadwick, who does the college football stuff.
Yeah.
It's awesome to see these guys and what like actually working in the industry. And I'm not gonna lie, I was very nervous the first time introducing myself to these guys. So this time around, I knew what it was going to be like ahead of time. I knew the amount of access I was going to be able to get with them, and I wanted to take advantage of that more this time around. And so I did have conversations with guys like Trevor Sikkema, Max Chadwick, Deanna Rossini at ESPN. She was actually on my flight to Mobile, so it was awesome to talk with these people and get advice and tips on a younger person like me trying to break into this industry. And it's very competitive, and just hearing how they got to where they are now is inspiring.
No better preparation than experience. You just cannot duplicate that. All right, let's get into some actual football players. Who were some guys that you had in your mind that you were excited to see once you got down to Mobile?
Yeah, so a few people I had in mind. I mean, the quarterbacks, I'm gonna be honest, I was not really looking forward to. I mean, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milrow were probably the two headliners, but beyond that, I was like, okay, nothing crazy. Mike Green was someone that I was looking forward to a lot. I thought he would have a big week, which he did. He delivered very much so. I think he's going to be a first round pick. Uh, Azari Thomas, I got his pronunciation down. I asked him myself. So Azari Thomas, the cornerback out of FSU, was someone who I was really looking forward to seeing. He's a press man corner who I thought Washington could have the opportunity to select late in the first round. It was an up and down week for him, but it was someone that I think it's okay. I think I'm not too worried about him having an up and down week throughout the course of the week. He showed what he showed on tape, and he did it against some of the best wide receiver prospects in the league. So Thomas is someone that maybe his up and down week would help a team like Washington, as they could maybe get him later on in the second round, because I think cornerback is definitely still a need, even with or without Marshawn Lattimore. So
Completely agree.
yeah, I think drafting someone like him would be awesome. I mentioned Mike Green.
Talk
Uh,
to me about Mike Green real quick. He was
yeah,
one of the bigger and more notable names from the week. A lot of people might not have known about him before the Senior Bowl just because he went to a smaller school, but tore the league up last year. And a guy that I think a lot of people thought might have been there at 29 feels like
no.
he won't be anywhere close to 29 by the time we get to the draft.
Yeah, no, I love Mike Green. He was someone that I had my eye on going into the Senior Bowl, and when he accepted that invite, I was like, yes, because this guy's going to show the NFL world. Even though he was at a smaller school at Marshall and West Virginia, he can do it against some of the best he can do it against some of the top talent in this draft class, and he's got elite bend, high motor. The guy is always hungry, trying to make a play. He was college football's leading sack leader. He had, I believe, 17 and a half sacks last season for the Thundering Herd. And not only did he do it in his conference, but he also did it against Ohio State, a team that won the national championship early on in the year. There was a play I was able to ask him what his one of his favorite plays was at Marshall, and he mentioned the play against Ohio State. It was towards the end of the game. Now, this Marshall team was down at the time, but like the game was probably over. But this guy was still hungry. He goes, I believe he tacked the outside shoulder of a right tackle, and he spins back inside. He's got elite bend, and he was able to track down Will Howard, who was moving to his left. So it was awesome to see a guy like Green show out and have such an amazing couple of days before he dipped out after that Wednesday practice. But it's awesome what this guy is able to do, and I would have loved to see him on the Washington Commanders, but the chances are low right now. The chances are low.
There are several DNs that went to the Senior Bowl that maybe have a better shot of being there. Do you consider edge a big need for Washington this year?
Oh, yes, for sure. I think pass rusher is something that Washington would love. The Dante Fowler production was great, and it was especially surprising over that middle part of the season when Washington needed it. But at the end of the day, Dante Fowler, Dorrance Armstrong are not going to be able to deliver the pass rush that Washington needs, especially because the defensive tackles aren't as great in the pass rush and haven't been able to get to the quarterback as much as they were used to, which is, I mean, fine. Like they're getting older, but Washington's going to need more pass rush production. And not only is the pass rush important for these edges, but they need someone to stop the run, because the run defense last season was, oh boy, it was something. It was not fun to watch. No, it was bad. But so you kind of need a pass rusher, not only that can rush the passer, but can also play the run and set the edge in the run game. So there's a lot of guys at the Senior Bowl. A guy that stood out to me was Josiah Stewart out of Michigan. He's someone that I think, if I had to name one player that I think would be a Washington Commander in this draft, it would be Josiah Stewart. I think he's the most likely chance of being a Washington Commander, because maybe it would probably be in the second round with that later second round pick. But Stewart is someone who I think Adam Peters would love. Maybe it's also, he reminds me so much of Mikey Sanderstill and how Adam Peters loves Sanderstill. Maybe it's because they're both at Michigan, but it's a 4-year player, a senior. I believe he was a team captain as well, 2 years at Coastal Carolina before transferring over to the Wolverines. And he's a very good run stopper. He's also he's kind of a Mike Green light, in my opinion. He's kind of got that same play style that Mike Green has. I have Mike Green higher in my rankings than Josiah Stewart, but Stewart is someone who I think Adam Peters could fall in love with, and someone who can who brings a nice blend of hungriness and aggressiveness in the pass rush, plus can also set the edge and chase down running backs as well.
Tell me a little bit about the two Texas A&M defenders that were there.
Yeah, so Shamar Stewart. So Shamar Stewart was there. Nick Scourton unfortunately dropped out, I believe, the night before or 2 nights before. So Scourton was not there, but Shamar Stewart was there for a couple of days, and then he got caught leaving early as well. So Stewart was someone who I think had a great week. Stewart is a great run stopper in himself as well. And you look at some of these numbers production wise, I wouldn't really worry about them. He had 1.5 sacks, I think, last season for the Texas A&M's defensive line. But if you turn on the tape, you can see the athleticism. A reason why he was a former 5-star prospect in Texas A&M's dominant class that they had back in 2021, I believe, was their dominant recruiting class.
Yep.
So Stewart was someone who very athletic, super long arms. He's powerful, and his initial strike is amazing. And he showed off a bag of pass rush moves that I didn't really see on tape. But at the Senior Bowl, he had a spin move in there. We already knew about his bull rush, but even his speed on the outside against some of these tackles was impressive as well. And he's a bigger guy too. And the way he's able to move at, I believe, what's that, 270 or somewhere around there, it's awesome to see.
The interesting thing about the move that Adam Peters made when he trades for Marshawn Lattimore, and you kind of mentioned corner early, is that it sets them up at 29 and frankly, each position in the draft to be able to go best position available, best player available, rather. Because really, to me, and I'm assuming to them, like outside of Terry and the quarterback, there's not a position on the team that couldn't use an upgrade. I know that the fans, the Commander fans, are clamoring for left tackles. I don't want any more tweeners, guys that maybe could play tackle but could kick in the guard. We have those. Of the guys that project to be strictly left or right tackles, who did you see, and were there some guys there that you think maybe could get in there at 29?
At 29, it's interesting, right? Because like you mentioned, a lot of these top offensive lineman prospects are played tackle in college football, but they're more projected to be a guard in the NFL. A lot of their arms don't have the length that true NFL tackles do. A lot of them are smaller.
That threshold is what, 35 inches for tackles on
Yeah, it's
arms?
upper end of 34, upper
Okay.
end of 34, I think, to 35. And a lot of them are on the 33 side, which is not great. But still, I think a lot of them would be great guards. And I mean, I just don't think there's a great option at 29. Maybe later on in the draft, someone that stood out to me at the Senior Bowl was Anthony Belton out of NC State. I thought Belton had a very good first couple of days. It was kind of a struggle down the stretch, but still, he showed off enough that I would say that he has a shot at being a true left tackle in the league. I think he's 6'5", I believe, which height-wise maybe is a little bit shorter than the average NFL tackle, but I would still, if there's one player I think there that I would take a chance on at tackle, it would be Belton. And I think Belton would be someone that would go in the third, fourth round. So it's not a great class if you need a true tackle. Like there's a lot of tweeners, like you mentioned, in this class, but Belton would be someone that I would keep an eye on. Josh Connerly,
That's the kid from Oregon.
Out of Oregon, was someone that I was looking forward to seeing. He maybe didn't give the best out there in Mobile, in my opinion. I know he got the best offensive lineman of the week voted on by his peers. So maybe there's something there. Maybe it was just the reps that I was watching. I'll have to look back at every single one of his reps. But I think there was some room for improvement there. And maybe that's just an off day. And so I would still trust the tape more on Connolly. 29 would be maybe a little bit rich, in my opinion, as well. But there's just so many of them that are like, and Connolly too is 6'4" as well.
Yeah.
So it's a smaller tackle. There's a lot of them, a lot of these tweeners that I'm kind of unsure about the tackle position. I would rather draft someone that would project out to be a good guard and maybe get an upgrade for an Allegretti or maybe a good third guard that can play immediately with Sam Cosmi most likely out for a good portion of the season. So I guess I would just stick with Coleman and Wiley for now.
Do you like Coleman at tackle? He needs to kick into guard in your mind?
Yeah, I think Coleman, there was good moments. There was some very good flashes, especially early on in the season. I was very impressed with him. Down the stretch, you could tell he was getting beat a lot, especially with his movement abilities, which is one of these reasons why some of these tackles need to move into guard. I would still have the jury out there. I wouldn't make a decision yet. I think I'd still need to see him maybe in the preseason or in the first couple of weeks out there at tackle next season. But I would have a plan in place just in case it doesn't work out for him at tackle. So it's still up in the air, in my opinion.
There were a couple of my beloved Bulldogs at Senior Bowl this week.
Yes.
The world might not know about Arian Smith, but he's fastest that you'll see. Tell me a little bit about him. And I think Trevor Etienne won the running back of the week for his team, a guy that really can play all three downs and catches the ball pretty well.
Yeah, Arian Smith was someone who I was worried a little bit. I mean, I think he can be a very good receiver in this league if he cleans up his drops problem, which he did show a little bit early on at the Senior Bowl, which you're getting passes from different quarterbacks. So everyone's kind of having some of those problems. But I think I loved what I saw from Arian Smith in terms of his speed, his ability to go up and make some of these harder catches. He does a very good job at it. It's just some of the routine ones that are a little bit of a struggle for him. As far as Trevor Etienne, as a Florida guy, Etienne was someone I got a love-hate relationship with, but Etienne is a very good running back, and I think Washington, he could be a target for Washington later on in the day too. It's a stacked running back class, so I'm very interested to see how that goes in terms of how many running backs will go in round 2 and round 3, and if you could maybe even get someone like Etienne maybe on day 3 or in the 4th round, just because there's so many of them. And I would have a higher grade on ETN than a 4th round pick, so I think that would be a steal for Washington. But ETN's vision, his ability not only in the rushing game to find holes, but also in the receiving game to win one-on-ones was awesome to watch. His footwork is great. ETN's a guy that I love. I hate to say it, but I love what I saw from ETN, even though he broke my heart last season. So yeah.
It feels like if you can get ETN in the 4th round, you're stealing.
Yeah, that's a steal. That's a steal. And I feel like the only reason why he would fall that far is just because there's so many good running backs. And so, you can't have a team draft 2 of them and then some people are going to fall as well. Or maybe you can in a draft like this. I don't know. Because I think I can't remember which draft analyst said it, but they had like 33 draftable grades on running backs, which is
I saw that.
It was insane. So there's a lot of good running backs for a team like Washington. I would definitely assume that Adam Peters is going to be looking at this running back class and most likely will draft one at some point. So.
If you think Omarion Hampton or a Trayvon Henderson is a guy that is a 3-down back that gives you the juice that you need, where do you stand on taking a running back like that at, say, 29?
At 29, that's an interesting one because I think it would be good for Washington. I think it would be good for Washington to take one of these running backs. At 29, I wonder if it's a little rich. I would look more so at a trade down and then draft the running back situation, maybe trade down 10 or so picks. Also, just because I feel like there's some bigger needs than running back on this team. And maybe they do go running back with their first selection, wherever that may be at 29 or a little bit later on. I just wouldn't put running back at the top of the list of needs for this team. Pretty much. So it's a good question though, because I do think running backs are more valuable, and we've seen that this season. We saw that with our very own eyes last week or 2 weeks ago. So I think running backs are a very valuable position, especially in this league where this league is at right now. But 29, I think, would be a little rich for me.
Do those guys have the same kind of juice as a James Cook or a Jahmyr Gibbs? Because to me, if they've got that kind of juice, then you're looking at more of some type of weapon that makes it feel more appropriate to be drafting in the 1st round.
Yeah, I think that's also a good question. I think Henderson is someone who I think you're looking at the speed and the receiving ability. I think Henderson is more so on that receiving side, while Hampton is someone who's a power guy. He can break a lot of tackles. I mean, Henderson can too, but more so between the tackles, he can bounce off of contact well. He's kind of got that Ashton Genty-ish type of feel where he can break tackles left and right, and he has great contact balance. Henderson is someone who I think could be, if you want to put him more into that James Cook, Jahmyr Gibbs role in terms of what they can do in the receiving game, I think Henderson is more so what you're looking for there. But if you think they're going to bring the production that a Jahmyr Gibbs or a James Cook does to this offense, then I'm all for it at 29. I just don't know if I'm entirely there yet on either of them.
Yep. All right, let's run through a couple of non-draft things real quick just to get out of here. Myles Garrett, yes or no?
Yeah. Yes. I would trade 29 plus more for it. I would. 2 first-round picks would be maybe a little bit too much in my opinion, but I would trade 29 rather than drafting a guy like a Jack Sawyer or someone at 29 as an edge rusher. I would trade 29, maybe a couple of thirds, maybe a second and a third to draft to trade for Myles Garrett. I would do that in a heartbeat easily.
Assuming the Rams eat some half of Cooper Kupp contract, if you had your choice between Cooper Kupp, George Pickens, and DK Metcalf, you'd prefer trading for who?
That's a good one. I would probably go DK Metcalf. It's interesting though because I talked with Josh Taylor about this at the Senior Bowl last week. This Washington team needs a receiver, but they need a bigger receiver that can create separation because it's weird. Terry's like 6 foot, right? So the receiving room overall is not that big, but Terry can do what a 6'4" receiver can do. Yeah. So you kind of like this receiver. You think this receiver room needs size, and DK Metcalf would bring that, but I think also DK can win those slants just like Terry can. And he brings a physicality that we didn't see beyond Terry last season. So of those three, I'd pick DK Metcalf just because he's also a lot younger than Cooper Kupp.
Does the style of offense and Jaden Daniels' willingness to distribute the ball to whoever's open devalue the Washington? Does it devalue the wide receiver position in Washington as far as having to spend big on it?
I don't think so. I would love to play with Jane Daniels. I think a lot of these receivers would love to play with Jane Daniels as well. I think they're looking at more so the quarterback position than the scheme and how he was able to spread the ball out so much. So I wouldn't say so. I agree that also Jane could get a lot of production from someone like Alameda Zaccheaus or Noah Brown when he was healthy last season, maybe more so than in a different scheme. But I think Cliff could do some crazy stuff with DK Metcalf or whoever they trade for as well. So I think you always want to add talent to a position, and just because of the scheme or whatever, you can't slack off at the wide receiver position. So
T. Higgins at $33 million a year, yes or no?
I would say no. I was thinking about this one this season, and I've gotten a lot of questions about this too, but 33 million is a lot. I mean, this team has about probably 65 million in cap and usable cap, I believe, somewhere around there this offseason, which is one of the most. But if you want to bring back some of your guys that you had this season, like a Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, that's going to eat away at it a little bit. And then I'm kind of looking at maybe a trade for a receiver, or if you're going to pay T. Higgins 33 million, I'd rather just draft one, a younger one that can create separation better than Higgins can. So that's what I'm at.
Assuming Mariota would want to come back, a slight bump gets him to around 10 or 11 million a year. Are you paying that for a backup quarterback?
It's a lot of money, but I think I would, just because the bond that Mariota had with Jaden, and I would pay a few extra million for. I know it would make him, I'm assuming, one of the highest paid backup quarterbacks in the league, but I would do that. I would do that.
John Allen back on the team this year.
I think if there's one tackle of those two that gets traded, I think it is Jonathan Allen. I think Allen's looking at his cap hit. I know he kind of feels not in place. Like when I think of Jonathan Allen, I kind of think of the old regime a lot, which I know these guys are bringing in new players. I know some of the veterans have stayed and are going to stay with this new regime. But something just seems out of place with me with Jonathan Allen on this team, and I think there's a good chance he gets moved this offseason.
I agree. What if the draft was tomorrow? Who do you think they'll take at 29, or what position?
If the draft was tomorrow, I think they go edge rusher at 20.
Edge rusher.
Yeah.
I think that's probably right.
Yeah.
Mason, this was great, buddy, man. We'll have to do this again. I appreciate all the insights from Mobile. You're great, man. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, and hopefully we can do this again too, because it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely.